Hello and welcome to the BOSStimator. Ryan Frick, your personal trainer here. Today we're going to be discussing the initial install onto the program and the password protection devices that are set up within the BOSStimator. The main screen that you see when you originally install it is the end user license agreement. You need to read through this and be familiar with it. And this is what your requirements are, and this is what the limits of liability of the BOSStimator are. After you agree to it, you want to accept to abide by it. If you have some questions about it, feel free to look at any of the tutorials that we have available. But once you're ready, go ahead and click and abide by it. The next screen that comes up is that you need to set the administrator's password. The password protection devices within the BOSStimator limit access to certain screens and locks other screens from access. Let's take, for example, you do an estimate and the estimator is John Doe. Only John Doe has authorization to make changes to that estimate, or the administrator has access to it as well. Administrator that you set up at the beginning has access to every page within the BOSStimator. But let's continue on. Go ahead, and it says it's important that you remember what the password is, so we'll go ahead and press OK. First screen that shows up is the administrator information. You'll only see this one time during the initial install. So go ahead and type in your information that you want, your information or the administrator's information. I'm just going to call this guy Brian Markham, and I'm going to say his password is MARKEM, not UM. And then the hint is exactly that, so it helps you to remember what the password was. And for this, just so you can see, I'm just going to change it like that and press OK. Again, you got the tutorial button there. Then we have the main, this screen that you'll see every time that you open a system will be the login screen. You can pull down the login names and it'll pull up every active employee that you have available. And we just changed one to Brian Markham. We know that he is the administrator at this point. So go ahead and click on him, and then you type in the password that you should have written down. I'm going to put in a whole bunch of things and press tab, and that says, hey, this isn't the right password, and your password hint would have shown up here if whatever it would have been. So you need to make sure that what your password is and what your hint is, because it'll show up if you do forget it. If you do not log in with an authorized password, what happens? I'm going to go ahead and log in so you can see. It'll open up the system, but it'll open it up in restricted access. And what that means is you don't have access to everything within the system. You can't go in here and make changes to your company's information, or you don't have access to go in and make changes to the clients. You're basically in a review mode that you can just look at and see what's available and maybe print some reports out and stuff like that, but you don't have total access at all. You have to be logged in as an employee or as the administrator in order to have access to it. So I'm going to go ahead and go back out and re-log in, and you can easily do that at any time by going to the main screen and clicking in the login button. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to chime in Markham, Brian Markham. I just start typing it, it'll fill it in, and I had his mark with an EM. And as soon as you press tab out of that, it recognizes it, and then you can log in. Depending upon what components you have installed on the system, it may take a little bit to install, but it'll open up on the very first time to the main screen, and then you can see here that I have access to changing things right now. So as you can see, your information for your company's not here, and there's a whole bunch of things you need to fill out, and you should watch some of the other training tutorials. I'll go ahead and click on this so you can see where you can come in here and you can say first time the BOSStimator runs and color codes and setting up your company. Watch those tutorials and to show you how to walk around through that. But for this purpose, I'm just going to go back and show you the password protection devices. Let's go into the employee form, and you'll see that now we have a complete list of the employees. You can't go in here and make changes to the employees unless you have authorization from as your login name. So what happens now is if you want to make changes, since I was the administrator, I had access. But if you want to make changes to some of the other ones or add employees, you can just go in here and start typing in the new employee. So let's say we wanted to add another guy named Jim Halt, and we're going to establish him as a title as an accountant. As you notice, I tried to establish as an accountant, and it would not allow me to do it. because the only two screen parts that you have access to at this point is the first and last name. So in order to access the Jim Holt, the administrator who we have established earlier, we need to go and do the administrator has access to changing the defaults and information for that individual person. So the administrator is the one that you need to set up all your employees through. So just press the Go To button, and again you enter your password. This gives you access to it. MARKEM. Sorry, MARKUM. EM. And then I did that, and it says enter the employee site. And then what that does is that with the administrator, you can go in here and fill in your phone numbers and take a picture of yourself so it shows up on some of your reports. But only the administrator has a little button over here on the left called the Administrate. Each employee has access to this screen. They can come down here and change their password, and they can change their hint at any time they want to when they log into their employee database. But they can't establish what the bid limit is or who their supervisor is. And when I clicked on that, it says, hey, this is determined by your supervisor, so contact the administrator. So the administrator will, when they log in, they will have the Administrate button. So when I click on that, what that does is it brings up a dialog box that allows you to come in here for Mr. Holt, and I'm going to assign him as an accountant, and I'm going to say his supervisor is Jane Doe. And then you can come in here and for temporary purposes, establish a password, whatever you want, and just let Mr. Holt know what it is. I'm going to put Holt. Department is design, and then the bid limit. What the bid limit does is if he's an estimator or he's out there bidding jobs, this establishes what his available, what he can bid up to without having an authorization from his supervisor or the administrator. So if he bids over, let's say like Jane Doe's bid limit's $2,000, if she bids over $2,000, then she would be required to have the administrator override to continue with the bid. So I'm going to go ahead and establish Mr. Holt's bid limit at $2,500. And then when you're done, you can press close. And as you see that the information is set up in here now, and you are available to go. Other than that, there's restricted sites that you can get into. The passwords also protects estimates like we had described before, but that is the basics behind the passwords in the initial install. At this point, you can go back and log in, and you can log in as Mr. Holt or whoever you want to. His name now pulls up here, and I'm going to say Holt again. Oop, I didn't put a hint there. And then I can log in. Now it will be logged in. It would recognize the person. It's reconnecting everything, and it should be Mr. Holt's switchboard. So now it's logged in as Mr. Holt, and that's the password and password protection devices within the BOSStimator. Feel free to look around, ask questions, and if you ever have any questions, please feel free to call the boss.